I'm Tammy, I'm the Siberian Wind, and welcome to the Veterans Day discussion. I'm not live, so this is a recording, so I apologize if I'm not saying hi to everyone in the chat. I'm sure that you guys are all having a great Tuesday, and I would love to be here with you, but I am out celebrating and honoring veterans today, and I'd like to talk a little bit about that. Veterans Day started after World War I. Before then, so Civil War, American Revolutionary War, all of the heroes that fought for our country's freedom didn't get recognition for it aside from whatever their local communities wanted to do for them. It was just considered part of the American way. We fought for our country, men, women, children, we all fought to provide this American dream. And it wasn't until after World War I when it was implemented as an armistice day in 1918 that we even came up with something like this. The armistice between the Allied nations and Germany went into effect at the 11th hour, on the 11th day, on the 11th month, ending World War I. So November 11th, during 11 a.m., that's when World War I ceased. Veteran service organizations in 1954 convinced Congress to amend the 1938 Act and rename the Armistice Day under President Eisenhower, to rename it into Veterans Day. So it wasn't just remembering World War I, it wasn't just remembering just that symbolic history where Allied nations overpowered the Axis powers. It was transformed to remember every single veteran. In 1975, it had briefly been moved from 1971 through 1975. Veterans Day had been moved to October, and in 75, Gerald Ford signed a new law returning it to the historical date of November 11th. So Veterans Day, kind of as we know it, went back into effect in 1978. That means that we've had about almost 50 years. We're at 47 years of Veterans Day being on November 11th again since that happened. The hard part about Veterans Day, we have so many different holidays that celebrate our country. We have Memorial Day, which a lot of people forget is to remember those who didn't make it home and to celebrate the freedom that they offered us with that ultimate sacrifice, because their families will never be the same again, whether that's my family from someone who didn't make it home, your family from someone who didn't make it home, or whatever that may be. That's what Memorial Day is for. July 4th is celebrating the birth of our nation in 1776 with the signing of the Declaration of Independence. But Veterans Day is to remember all of those who have seen unimaginable things and done the unimaginable things, or paid witness to the unimaginable things, whether that was in more current fields of battle like Desert Storm and Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom, or whether it's our Vietnam era veterans who not only came home to a country that was divided, but they came home as a symbol of the government that we hated at that time and got so disrespected in just existing. We did so much more damage to our Vietnam veterans than they could have ever done to themselves, and more than war did to them. We did so much more damage to our veterans then. It is incredibly important as a nation that we take that time to honor our veterans and remember that they are humans and that they have been through the dredges of war, whether they deployed or not. They went through boot camp. They have comrades. They have brothers and sisters out there that may still be in. They've had brothers and sisters who didn't come home, or didn't come home to their families the way that we would all hope for. We need to remember our veterans, because no matter how healed a veteran may look, they have done the things that we couldn't do. I could not have survived boot camp. There are so many things in the military that I honestly could not have survived. I could not have done it. I could not have chosen that path. So I'm incredibly thankful for every single one of our members, of subscribers who are veterans, who have taken that oath to serve and protect our country. I want to say thank you. And I want to encourage all of the rest of us to help support every veteran that we can possibly support. And when I say that, I know the first thing that comes to most people's minds, and mine too, when I hear it, I hear, how much do you want? Like, how much, what number do I need to put on the check? And that's really a hard topic right now, especially for so many who are suffering from the government shutdown, who are going through tough times in their lives, whose income isn't really adjusted for inflation, and inflation's hitting big right now. It's hard to say, please support, when you already have that, I wouldn't call it sticker shock, you have wallet shock, because where is that money coming from? And there's a lot of other resources out there that can help support veterans without necessarily just being a monetary donation. And it's not that every last one of us needs to give everything that we have in order to support a veterans facing organization, but even getting the word out, it can do so much. One of the organizations that I support is Quilts of Valor, but I'm going to come back to that. I'm going to talk about a couple of organizations that you may or may not have heard about before. You may not have heard me talk about them before, but I do want to bring them up because they are organizations with which my husband, who is a 23-year veteran, he served in the Marine Corps first, so once a Marine, always a Marine, but he also served time with the Army and the Air Force branches. And one organization that has done a lot to both help my husband and to help him help others has been Veterans Talking to Veterans. Now, when I was looking at their site earlier today, they work in Wyoming, Idaho, and New Mexico, but that doesn't mean that their reach stops there. Veterans Talking to Veterans helps provide coaching and provide training for coaching for people to help veterans who are going through crises. And that could be, we don't have enough money to make it to the end of the month, and we are so stressed that we're at each other's throats. we just need someone to talk to get us off that ledge. That's that's where they can go. It's not necessarily, I've seen so many veterans who, the moment that you mention the Veterans Crisis Line, they shut down because it feels like another VA sponsored program. And for all of the benefits that the VA does have for our veterans, so many of our veterans have had to fight. They came home from fighting, and then when they go to the VA, they have to fight to get the care that they need, or to go through all the red tape to get the support, or they get told that they need XYZ procedure and it's going to be sent through community care, and then it is another 2 or 3 months before this urgent need is being met. So I've seen it firsthand, and I know so many veterans who, the moment that they hear about the Veterans Crisis Line, they they have one of two concerns. One is either that their need is going to be put on the back burner, like it frequently has in healthcare coverage. And I know that's not every veteran's case. I know that there are plenty of veterans who walk into the VA, or they have TRICARE, and they are getting that care immediately when they need it. But there's so many veterans who have not been served by the VA that it's that caveat of, do you go seek care, or do you just do what we were taught in the military and grin and bear it? Do you just fight through because that's what you've been told by the military and by your extensive boot camp training and subsequent schoolings? You've been taught to just bear through it. It will get better eventually. You just have to make it through. You are in this fight, and you are constantly in a fight. And I don't feel like veterans should have to fight for that. The nice thing about Veterans Talking to Veterans is that when my husband got connected with them to become a counselor, he did not have to fight. Yes, there's hard parts of the program. Yes, it's extensive training. It is a lot of learning what you need to learn and learning how to talk to other people and help them versus just talking to them, and helping guide others who are in that same dark corner alley that you've been in before, and guiding them to a new path. So unlike the Veterans Crisis Line, Veterans Talking to Veterans has been incredibly helpful for my husband. So a program like that can definitely use your support. I'm not saying it's a perfect fit for everyone, but if you would like to look at it, there will be a link in the description box, so you can click through and at least give their website some traffic. Maybe that will get the algorithm on just websites in general, maybe that will push them out a little bit. If you want to do something with them, you are able to do that and help support their programs. You can find out more about what areas they serve and how many veterans they're serving, all of that. Feel free to contact them and reach out to them. Another program that my husband is near and dear with is Patriot Express Honor Trips, and it is something that is his brainchild. A lot of the honor flights that I've heard about take veterans to go to Washington, D.C. to see their national monuments, and they are amazing monuments. I've seen so many of them. I was in high school and got to go to Washington, D.C. and go photograph all of these different monuments. The Vietnam War one spoke to me at the time because the only veteran I knew personally was my dad, and he is a Vietnam era veteran. So that one was near and dear to my heart. I haven't been back since then to go see all of the monuments to see if there's anything different or anything that speaks to me differently now. And those monuments are great. Don't get me wrong, they are fantastic monuments. Um, we have a gem here in Wyoming. It is called the Museum of Military Vehicles, and it's in Du Bois, Wyoming. And the founder, his name is Dan Stark, he has a passion for bringing these military vehicles back to life, so to speak, in a way that both honors the history of the vehicles and honors the history of the conflicts. So, walking through his museum, I personally was crying through the Vietnam section because even though I'm too young to have lived through the actual Vietnam War, and I was not around during the time that all of those conflicts were going on and all of the media and everything else, I understood and knew that our Vietnam veterans did not get any kind of respect when they got home. I realized and I knew that, especially from my dad's stories, that he served, but he wasn't proud of his service because the entire war was a shame upon the country at the time. Like, people were so disgusted with the war that they were taking it out on these 20 somethings that were coming home from having seen the unimaginable horrors in Vietnam or serving anywhere in the world during the Vietnam War. And they were getting treated as though it was their fault, even though it really wasn't. They were doing what they were called by their country to do, which is stand up and serve. And the Vietnam section of the Du Bois Museum, the Military Museum of Military, the Museum of Military Vehicles in Du Bois, what they do so beautifully is they bridge that gap, especially for my generation who didn't live through it, so that we can understand exactly what was going on. And it's not sugar coated, it's not politicized as, this was wrong or this was right or this is what. There was none of that. It was all, it was clinical, but not in a clinical way. It's beautifully represented, and there's a section where you are put into the position of going through a section of jungle. Obviously, we're on ADA accessible ground going through it, but you are put through going through what our ground troops in Vietnam would have been experiencing and how harrowing that could be. And you get to immerse yourself as much as you are comfortable in doing so. And they also warn you before you go into the exhibit or as you come out of it, if you are struggling, please let a member of staff know, because they want to be there to sit with you and help you, because it can definitely bring back some very serious PTSD. And even as someone who's never been to Vietnam and never been through war myself, I was struggling. So it's very tastefully done, very well thought out. And my husband was sitting, after going through this museum, he was sitting and at the canteen and eating and thinking about everything that is in that museum, every single piece of that museum, and how amazing that museum is for retelling the stories. Some that he's lived through and some that are before his time even, and some that are just before my time that I had never seen. And he was thinking about it, and he said, well, I wonder why we can't bring veterans out here to come see this. And it's not a specific one era museum where it just goes through just Vietnam or just through Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Iraqi Freedom and or World War II or um, the Korea, everything in Korea, it doesn't go through just one, it goes through all of them, because military vehicles change so much throughout history, and it's so impressive to see what our country came up with and what other countries came up with. There are non-US vehicles also included in the museum. So my husband's thought was bringing veterans to go see that. And so his nonprofit that he started is Patriot Express Honor Trips, and that is taking veterans here in Wyoming out to the museum. There are plans to expand the program in the future. We're just starting, especially with Casper, because that's where we live. So we're starting there, and he is wanting to bring veterans from even further out to come see this museum. So that is on the plans and in the works. The first trip is going to be in May. There are ways that you can donate to that monetarily. I'm not asking for donations. I'm just letting you know that if that calls to you, you can donate to the Patriot Express Honor Trips. But those two organizations, the Veterans Talking to Veterans and the Patriot Express Honor Trips, are near and dear to our family. And then the other one is Quilts of Valor. So with Quilts of Valor, what we do is we create quilts that are a generous throw, so 60 by 80 approximately. There's some lower end thresholds, and then there's some upper end thresholds that we try to stick to when we are creating a quilt. The quilts are never tied, they are always quilted. They can be quilted with straight lines, they can be quilted on your domestic machine, they can be quilted on a long arm. They are usually, we're asked to use primarily cotton batting because it holds up long term. We want these quilts to be able to represent our thank you to each veteran, and to wrap them in a warm hug and give them a constant reminder of how we appreciate all of the sacrifices that they've done. And some people have only, they served boot camp and they served stateside, but they came into contact and had to repeatedly deal with veterans who have had that trauma of war and do have PTSD or other serious medical conditions. So the touched by war aspect is has been removed from the overall statements that we've been giving out about Quilts of Valor, but it is still very much part of the mission. We want to cover every veteran who has been touched by war with a comforting and healing Quilt of Valor. So let me show you how you can get involved with Quilts of Valor. I'm going to grab my screen and I'm going to take you guys through what you're going to see. So when you go to the Quilts of Valor homepage, you're going to see the beautiful Quilt of Valor with quilts equaling healing, and the mission statement is to cover service members and veterans touched by war with comforting and healing Quilts of Valor. So share the passion of the mission. If you don't want to make a quilt or you don't want to help with quilting, you can always make a donation. That is always an option that you can do. You are welcome to do that. You can also join the Quilts of Valor Foundation, and there are a lot of local Quilts of Valor groups across the country. You can also start your own Quilt of Valor group if you so decide that you want to do that. So according to today's information, as of October 31st, the lifetime total of quilts that have been donated is 427,121 quilts. That is since the Quilts of Valor Foundation started in 2003. So that is crazy that we've had that many. There's also a get involved option. There's information here about how to make a Quilt of Valor if you so choose to. So you just hover your mouse over Get Involved and this little box will pop up so you can make a Quilt of Valor. There's also quilt patterns available on the Quilt of Valor website. There is a national block drive, and every year there's a different block. I believe this year's block is the log cabin block. Now the presentation case, not every group uses a presentation case, but you absolutely can. Let's say you have a long arm and you don't mind donating some time to quilt a quilt for a group. You can also volunteer for the long army. So if piecing a quilt is not an option that you're interested in, you can always do that. You can look at the Under Our Wings program that is here as well. And here's the Who's in My Area. This is the really awesome one. The Who's in My Area brings up a map of the entire country, and you can see there's not a lot of groups in northern Nevada. Of course, Montana's not super populated, so there's a good section of Montana that maybe doesn't have a lot of Quilts of Valor groups, and parts of New Mexico and Texas over through here, but I'm not sure that those are highly populated areas. So if you want to scroll down just a little bit, you can put in your city and state or your zip code, and I am going to put in my mailing zip code and search, and there's two groups. There's Crossroads Quilters and Working for Warriors. That the Working for Warriors is my group. So it's going to show you, and you can scroll in onto the different groups. You can donate specifically to a group. So if you choose Working for Warriors, for example, you click donate, and this comes up with how much you want to donate. You can do in honor or in memory of someone. You can make it a one-time or recurring donation. You have a lot of options, so you can donate specifically to your local group. So that is always an option. You can also find the options to help you get involved. So I'm going to look up another zip code. I am familiar with the Birmingham area, so I'm going to look up, oh no, 35244 does not come up. You know what, let me go a little bit south of Birmingham. And apparently there's not groups that are coming up in that area, but what I'm going to do is I am going to zoom out. Oh, and I apologize, I did not mean to quickly zoom out like that or quickly zoom in. So there is a group north of Birmingham here. There's a couple of groups in the Huntsville and Madison area in Alabama. And then the next groups in Alabama are down near Mobile and Saraland. So you can always, this is a control zoom, is what I'm doing on my computer. You might have different options if you are using a phone to access the site, but you can always check and see about the different groups, as well as shops that are in the area. So a group is going to be a blue dot and a shop is going to be a red dot. So if you are looking for places to get involved with Quilts of Valor, this is one way to do it. And a lot of the groups do already have funding as well as fabric and batting, so you are solely donating your time. So with that being said, there's a lot of ways that you can support veterans, and Quilts of Valor is just one of them. Again, with Quilts of Valor, they also have a yearly sew day. It's usually the first Saturday in February. So if you have a local group in your area you want to get involved in, then you can always go ask them if they'd like help for their sew day. You can also start a group in your area if you are in an area that does not have a Quilts of Valor presence. You can start a group if you so choose to do so. And they will give you a lot of training as well as support. The Quilts of Valor Foundation is really good about that, about supporting their local groups. So for my group, for example, if you show up for a sew day, I know Casper is a long travel for a lot of you, but I already have fabric, I already have patterns. If you have a pattern of your own you want to use, bring it. But we already have fabric, we already have patterns, we have batting and backing. So you are solely donating your time and maybe some thread, or maybe a needle or two. So it's an option, especially if donating to another program or spending time helping another program is not an option for you because of finances. Because I know for me, for sure, financially supporting a lot of different groups, I would love to, but I don't have that option. But I do see the impact when I am part of a Quilts of Valor award ceremony. I see the impact on the veteran. I see their look of appreciation. And I've had veterans tell us that they don't want a quilt because they don't feel like they deserve one. And that's heartbreaking as well, because every veteran who has honorably been discharged from the military or is currently actively serving does qualify if they are touched by war. And yeah, that touched by war can be so many different ways. So I implore you on this Veterans Day, take the time to call up a veteran that you know. Let them know that you are grateful for every moment that they served in the military, that you are thankful for everything that they did, and for the impact that they had on your life, whether they knew you while they were in the military or not. Every veteran's service, every active duty member service has an impact on our entire way of life here in the United States. And I will not shy away from thanking them for their service, even when they don't understand that I truly am just completely honored that they chose to serve so that I could have the freedom that I have. So if you are a veteran and you are listening to this and you're you're watching this and you're not crying, that's fine. You don't have to cry. But I really am thankful that you served, because I couldn't. There's no way I could have done what you've done in the way you've done it and the time that you did it. So thank you for your service, and thank you for the freedom that your service ensured that I would have. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I hope you have had a blessed Veterans Day. I hope each and every veteran that gets touched by this video understands that veterans are always at the top of my radar for people that I want to make sure that I say thank you to, because it really does. I know I've said this so many times, but it really does make a difference. Without you, our country would not be what it is today. Whether you consider our country in a good place or not, and I know there's a lot of criticism on both sides of the political spectrum. I'm not here to debate politics. I will not do it. That is not what my channel is about. But you cannot deny, if you look back through our history as a country, you cannot deny that our veterans, service members and veterans, are single-handedly responsible for giving us the opportunity to have the political debate, to be at war with each other over differing political views. If it wasn't for a veteran, we wouldn't have that option. So thank you, and thank you. It really does mean the world to me, and so many others, whether they want to acknowledge it or not. It means the world. Thank you for giving me the freedom to quilt. I appreciate it. It really, it, it makes me happy. And that's what you have done as a veteran, so thank you. I am going to go ahead and sign off, but I want to again implore you, if you are looking for something to do on this Veterans Day, or you are looking for a way to end your Veterans Day, please look at the links in the description box, look at the different organizations, consider what you would like to do with your future to thank a veteran, because thank you can never be said enough. Thank you for watching, and until I see you on Friday with Kathy from My Hobby Home and Alicia from Quilty Bird Piecing for Yuletide Sampler 2, until I see you for that, I want you to have a beautiful week. Definitely pet some fabric, put some needle and thread to fabric, get those warm fuzzies in, and I will see you soon. Until then, bye.